Evening. Yes, Liz, I'm confused by beach pizza. I assume that is eating pizza on the beach and not pizza you found just on the beach lying around. Um, anyway, folks, my name is Rob. We are here to talk about JQL. You'll hear me refer to that as Jayquill, is how I like to pronounce that acronym. And it stands for Jira Query Language. And if some folks could give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can hear me okay, it looks good from my end. But I don't want this to turn into another one of those sessions where I talk for 10 minutes and no one can hear me. Good morning, everyone. It's great to see the chat already going, talking about various things. Rodney is referring to a Discord or chat server we have set up just to talk about Atlassian stuff between live sessions. So if you all would like to join, there's a link right there in the chat. I've got about 100 folks in there talking about all kinds of different topics from JQL and search to some in-depth Confluence API stuff to what their favorite cat is. I'm glad you can all hear me. So again, my name is Rob. I'm an Atlassian certified professional. Finally, that is a certification level Atlassian has. I also have some of their associate level certifications. And I've been putting on live trainings to help folks like all of you learn the skills that I was never taught, if that makes sense. When I started using these systems, and you'll hear me talk about this as we go, I had no training. Akash, welcome from India. Daryl, I believe that's the Shaka hand single. Barbara, welcome from General Motors from Kansas City. 24, good to see you. Andy from Dusseldorf, Germany, I think. Y'all giving me a geography quiz. So this training, again, focuses on JQL, and we're going to dig into functions. I had some great feedback in some of the prior courses to get more hands-on and to spend more time in the topics. So I will have a question as we go. I'm considering doing a live session where it's just applied JQL, where all we do is talk about and execute functions. We don't talk about the theory or context. So please keep that in mind if that is interesting. I'll be happy to put together a session where we go through 5 or 10 queries and we break them apart. And so you can understand how they work. And we can then take questions or have specific use cases on, I need to find this from JQL. We will start with some slides. I will go over the basics of JQL for folks who missed it. I'll go pretty quick though. Please, y'all have already seen the chat and you'll have a slide about that, but please use the chat to talk about. Things. You can see folks sharing where they're at and finding things. Scott, thank you for remembering the purpose of this is not to search, it is to find. Searching implies we won't find what we need. So I'll pop into the slides. We'll go pretty quick through, again, the stuff we covered last week. And then my goal will be to get us all at least moderately comfortable, I'll say, with JQL functions as we go. And that is the wrong thing to share. That is the right thing to share. As I mentioned, I'm Rob. I've had a career in IT. And I've been using Jira about 10 years, again, with no training. I was just told that is Jira, that is what you will use, go have fun. I started using it as a customer, so putting in tickets for my team to help fix something. But now I work as a project manager. I have my own Jira projects for tracking my own work, so I'm neck deep in Jira. And it's not a bad thing, it's not a good thing, it is the tool that I use to support my team in my work. And one of the biggest hurdles I find and one of the biggest frustrations my team has is just finding stuff. And so that's why we're here to talk about how do we find information. Now, during this session, I'll be talking a lot. I'll be pointing at Jira. We'll be using Jira Cloud Premium. Everything I show you, with a few exceptions, will be available in every flavor or every version of Jira. The biggest exception, if I use Atlassian Intelligence, that is only available in Premium and Enterprise Cloud. I'll demonstrate what that is and why it's useful, excuse me, for JQL, but all of the functions we talk about, all of the JQL that I write should work in any version of Jira because I'm not using any add-ons or anything else. Please use the chat though. Like I mentioned, you've seen folks in there. If you're comfortable joining the discussion, please jump on in. And again, we have live chat on Discord between sessions, but in this live session, there are a lot of really smart people in the chat. Kythro, welcome with your one-armed wave. Good to see you, my friend. So please ask questions. If I can't answer them, or maybe I miss them, or maybe I'm too slow to respond, the other folks in chat help out. And this to me is what is really cool about these sessions. There are a whole bunch of super smart people who are going to jump in and help us all out. Also, you can see the discussion kind of talks about think it was pizza, and now we're talking about darkness or something. Anyway, it's not just specifically for JQL. I'll do my best to monitor it and answer questions, and I'll do my best to post a follow-up with any questions I might have missed. And of course, if you like this, please like it, please subscribe, let me know what you think. And if you have other ideas for training or things you would like to learn, please let me know in the chat as well. That's how I started doing this series and how I'll do other ones. A very quick agenda, and a big shout out to my friend Kythra for helping me edit all this stuff. I'm better at talking about JQL and less good about editing text, so a huge thank you to them and the rest of my content squad for helping me make this stuff look better and intelligible. All right, so we're going to talk very quickly about Jira and how work items are stored, again, just to make sure folks have the same level playing field. And then we'll talk about JQL or JQL syntax as well as functions. And the functions are the big thing we'll be digging into. They are not magic, but they're as close to magic as I can get us in JQL to help us find what we need. So our first question, do y'all use Jira and what for? And when we think of JQL, particularly functions, understanding our use case for Jira will help us kind of narrow down the list of things or the list of functions we can use or want to use. It certainly is, my friend, and it is certainly whatever the opposite of a superpower is. That's what I have with editing, so I really appreciate you. When I think of the Jira functions, it helps. Some of them just don't make a lot of sense or don't work as well. For example, there's a function that finds if something is approved, and if I don't use approvals in Jira, that function is interesting but not very useful. Using it for work management. The next door makes it their livelihood. The next door, I'd be curious if you can share more about what that looks like. That could mean, you're a Jira admin in an organization or a consultant or something else. Agile PM, work management. Barbara uses it to point out when her dev team missed a use case. Justin, apparently I've helped him delete work items. All right. Oh, Andy's on data center. So there are two main versions of Jira at this point. Cloud, which is managed and run by Atlassian. This Friday, I'm starting an entire training series on cloud. I'll dig up a link somewhere. It's also in Bevy. Data center is one managed by organizations themselves. Most groups that I work with use cloud because they don't have to worry about the servers and everything. Managing all kinds of projects, including ISO 9001. I hope I'm saying that right. I have managed to stay away from some of those bigger compliancy type things or the ISOs. Kythra, I love that use case, and we definitely need to chat, my friend. Wow. I think we just need to have a discussion at some point about creative uses for Jira. Rodney uses it to make tickets when something breaks in his house automatically. I love that. Okay, folks. So Justin is trying to get me to do this, say the word issue. Doink. And if I say the word issue, I won't push the button again. You'll see that pop up on the screen as a reminder. The things in Jira we're looking for are now called work items. So I'm trying to train myself to use the appropriate word. So if you see that red text pop up, I'm just keeping track of the number of times I missay it. Moving on, though. Jira, as you may be aware, is a work management tool, and it works for many different teams. The functions we're going to talk about, again, work in any version of Jira, but some functions will be more tailored for certain teams. For example, if we aren't using SLAs, all of the SLA functions aren't as useful. And when I think of functions and JQL, I need to remember that it's looking at the work item, and it's dependent on the fields on the work item. One of the big frustrations, especially with new team members, is they'll try and search for a work item in one project, and it's missing a specific field. And like, Rob, why don't these show up in my query? And I'll say, hey, yes, Liz, I did make a whole thing for it. I'm not going to tell you how much time I wasted trying to make that work, but it was a lot of time. That is that is not ripping off The Simpsons. It is saying the word doik and not Homer Simpson's dough. Anyway, So whenever you think about finding things in Jira, I tend to have a work item up on one of my screens just so I can see it, because this reminds me what fields are available. And functions are important because functions can dynamically have different values or expand the query. And so really knowing which fields are there helps me pick the function I want to use, but also correct the rest of my JQL search. Um, so Atlassian is working on updating this terminology. You will see both terms, the I word and work type, used all over the place. So if you are going through Atlassian's training or anything and you notice the old term, it's just going to take time. And for a lot of us who've used Jira for a while, we're going to keep saying that old word. I mentioned fields. There's a lot of them. Our basic search bar is in the top. This is still useful even with JQL, and I will start with this basic search bar because it's a good starting point, and it's something that I constantly forget about. So I always remind my team there is a basic search bar that we can filter by. And this can actually help teach us JQL or Jayquill, because if we switch it from basic search to JQL, we'll see the underlying JQL. The same is true for Atlassian Intelligence. If you're on Premium or Cloud, you can use it to help you learn JQL. So our next question, what's the most frustrating thing about finding work items? Well, I'll go dig up a quick little short. And for y'all's amusement, I'll drop a couple of shorts that I created because it made me laugh when I thought about how people might want to fight against this change. The top one relates to shorts. Top one relates to work items. The bottom one relates to the new UI, which we'll also be using. So Atlassian recently released a new UI for Jira and Confluence Cloud that is making it challenging for some of us with our old habits to keep using it. Barb, this is a great question. If I'm searching for text, do the words have to be in the summary or title? Not necessarily. We do have a JQL search for summary, but if we do use text, it could be in the summary, the comments, or the description. Amy, the new user UI. I'll drop another video in here, Amy, about the UI and just kind of walking through it. The biggest hurdle I have with it is it's just new. Liz always uses JQL. I also always use JQL. 24, what do you mean by a complex search? I could interpret that different ways. Again, I'm going to go quickly through these next couple of slides. We covered them in depth last week, but please drop questions in here and keep sharing those frustrations. That helps us figure out what we're looking for. Kythra, typos in the keyword. Yes, if something is misspelled or miscategorized. And this is where, even with functions, which are a very powerful tool, when we think of Jira, if it isn't set up properly or if someone does something unexpected, it'll make it hard to use and find. When we search in Jira, we're basically going through a big spreadsheet. And that's how I think of Jira. It might be super big, and I'm oversimplifying it, but I think of it like filtering a spreadsheet. I want to find every priority medium. I would click on filter and only click medium. That's all a JQL search does. And JQL is that advanced search. So you'll see we've got basic and JQL here. What we're going to talk about a lot today are statements. And this is the entire bit of JQL. And it kind of looks like code if you're familiar with SQL, SQL, or other search language. Rodney doesn't like labels. Rodney, what's up with labels? Why are they frustrating in Jira? Now, in this statement, and we'll break this down, there's three main parts that we need to consider, and our function is going to replace the value. So if I write this function, I could write minus 30D, which is negative 30 days, which is 30 days ago, and that minus sign really throws a lot of people with date math. Or I could have a function that says something like created is greater than start of day minus 30. So I have different ways I can express similar or identical things. But it's important that as we find in Jira, we're comfortable reading JQL. And I tend to read it left to right like an English sentence. So I want tickets that were created more than or exactly 30 days ago, and then order that entire list by the created date descending. That's a good exercise for me to go through every time I look at a query, just so I can understand what's going on. Oh, 24, yes. JQL is not SQL. So if you're super familiar with JQL, or sorry, with SQL, um, some of the tricks in SQL work, but others like subqueries don't really exist in the same way. You also can't do joins in JQL. I haven't run into a use case where I need to, so I'd be curious, 24, why you would need a join in a JQL query. Any not knowing all the field names, and that's exactly why I keep a ticket open, so I can have it either on one screen or one tab and then go back and forth. Because if I don't know the name of the field project, it makes it very hard to find something in it. Yes, labels. And those are all nicely spelled, Rodney. So there are a lot of challenges with finding, and that's where it's important when we think of finding in Jira, we have to also be familiar with the system. So we need to take time to look at the fields and understand what's in there. And just to understand things like Rodney's point about multiple labels, or who was it about not knowing the field names? Annie. Yep. Doesn't like automatic completion. Ooh. I like that, honestly, Andy. It's made me a bit lazy, and I like being lazy. Now, we have three major parts of a Jayquill statement. We've got the field that we want to look in, the operator, and then the value. Last week, when we spoke about values, we would just type them in, a certain piece of text, a certain project. For functions, we're going to replace this value with basically a little mini program that's going to go and find something for us. So we don't have to type in someone's username. We won't have to type in the exact start time of a date or figure out how many what exact day of the week 6 months ago was. 24 custom fields can be challenging, and I'm going to talk about them right now, so you kind of read my mind. Now, there's lots of fields in Jira. We can use JQL on any field that we can see. Now, we have to know the name of the field. And like I mentioned before, not every function is going to work on every possible field. Again, for example, the SLA functions only work with SLAs because that's how they're designed. Again, think of a function like a program. Now, there are custom fields. So this one, reporter assets, is also called CF10143. This only becomes super frustrating if there are multiple copies of reporter assets. If that's the case, you can always use the CF value to refer to the field. So if you're writing your JQL and you realize, oops, there's two fields with a similar name, you can use this one instead. The downside is reading your JQL gets really hard because instead of reporter assets, you would see CF10143 equals whatever the value is. Quick reminder that operators compare the value. So it says, hey, in the reporter field, look for something. And just like functions, the exact operators used will differ based on the field. Ooh. Custom fields with a restricted content applied are still available on the back end for all projects. Rodney, my friend, I might need your help here. Rodney in the chat is a super expert in Jira, and I'm really appreciative that he's here and I get to learn from him and with him. So I may ask if Rodney can help you out there, Remy. Remy, if we can't get you an answer right now, be on the lookout for follow-up, but also we've got our Discord server. Feel free to drop in there, and if you can give more context or examples, that's helpful. Now, the value, again, is what we're going to be talking about with our functions. In this screenshot, I could type in names like Alex or Alexander, or I could use this current user. And I'll talk about this function later because it's one of my favoriteest functions. All this does is removes the need for me to type in a name, and it just goes to Jira and it says, hey, Jira, who is logged in right now? Oh, it's Rob. Now the reporter's Rob. But if I give this query to Liz and she runs it, she'll get Liz instead. So functions give us a way to dynamicize, make our functions a lot more flexible. Dom's channel, you are 100% correct, my friend. And this is where most of the time in my career, I have not been the Jira admin, so I don't have the power to go get rid of duplicate custom fields. I have to be aware of them though, so I have to know that there's two fields called priority and which one I need to use. It is a very bad thing though, Dom. Okay. Our next question: do you use JQL functions? So that was kind of our quick refresher on JQL and search. Now we're going to dig more into functions specifically. So if you've used functions, what's your experience been? Do you have a favorite? Do you have a not favorite? Whatever the negative of the opposite of a favorite is. Least favorite? Now, in all honesty, I did not know functions were a thing. Barb, this was my experience. I got very lucky early in my career, and I had a Jira admin who helped me out. Honestly, I made so much extra work for this person because I screwed things up. He finally said, Rob, I'm going to just teach you so you don't make mistakes. Chad loves functions. Dom's channel likes the date functions. When are Jira functions? They are right now, Rodney. Chad, that is not a function. Someone help out Chad. What is this symbol that he put in chat? Not a function. And I'm going to be overly technical and specific. And I'm doing this because when we have to go look up help or when we talk to other people, if we use a different term or if we don't know the terminology, it can be hard to get help. And so if I ask about this function, the bang, the name of that symbol, the exclamation point equals, they're going to get confused. Yes, operator. Well, Chad, why did you put it in when I asked about your favorite function? Current user is the best function, arguably. Thank you, Rodney. I 100% agree. How would you dynamically filter issues to show only ones that are part of active sprints? Wow. Okay, I'm going to see if I can help you do this one live. Raunak, I hope I'm saying that right. I apologize if I'm not. If not, jump in that Discord server and we'll see if we can game that out for you. I don't know if my demo instance has everything to make that work, but I'll do my best to come back to this. I'm just going to copy this text so I can do it. Liz, is that a basic out-of-the-box function? And I'm asking because I'm just not familiar with it. Team, good grammar, please. Why are functions? Pradeep, min and max. Yes, I don't know if min and max are valid functions in JQL, and I'd have to go double check. So that's actually a great term, Pradeep. The term function is a generic term in systems and computers. Functions are part of computer code. If I say function, I might be talking about something in Google Sheets. So that's where we need to be careful. Yes, Liz. We need to be careful with our terminology. So functions in JQL take the place of a value. And like I mentioned with current user, but not all functions work with every field. You will see a function followed by these parentheses. So I call this symbol, that's the Shift 0 and Shift 9 on my keyboard. Kythra, functions is too headache. It's too early for this. I call these parentheses. You may call them brackets, but for my terminology, this will be parentheses. So it's any word followed by these parentheses. And that tells the system, that tells Jira, hey, this is a function and not text or something else. Now they are usually, it's called camel case, and I forget the exact version of camel case where the first letter is lowercase. But if there's multiple words in the functions, there's not going to be a space. It'll just uppercase the first letter. Now, the functions calculate a thing. So I think of them like a mini program that runs. And we can see a whole bunch of examples flying in here. Current user, parent, child of, in a sprint. Pradeep, is there a way I can see new functions getting added? There are... Rodney, you might know about this. I have not seen many new functions get added lately. I will drop a link to the list of Jira Cloud JQL functions, and this is Atlassian's official documentation. So that link is the official documentation from Atlassian. That's the best place to watch, Pradeep and everyone else, to get the most up-to-date information. Now, I'll pull that up on the screen right after I'm done with my slides and walk you through it, because I use that documentation a lot, but it can be hard to understand. So functions calculate a thing, and it could calculate who's the current user. It could calculate, is the ticket in an open sprint? So it does something more than just give us one value. So I'm going to walk you through the start of day function. Now, what this function does is it figures out when did a specific day start. So for example, if I want to find all the tickets created after a certain date, I can use start of day. Now, the difference between using start of day and well, let me ask the group, what is an advantage of using a start of day function over typing in a date? And this is an important thing to consider when we talk about functions. I'll give you all an answer in a moment. But I could have typed in, I'll walk through this and then I'll explain what else I could have done. Oops, wrong direction. So first it goes and figures out what is today. Oh, it's the 17th. Then I'm telling it -5, go back 5 days. So count on the calendar back to the 12th. And then it's just entering 512. So I could have typed in created is greater than 512. Dom's channel, reusable. Justin, SLA adherence. The target date range moves as the date progresses, Rodney. Shiva, dynamic. Time zones. I love all these answers, and they're all, in my mind, correct. This function will always look 5 days in the past, even if I run it in a week. So if I run this exact function next week, it won't look at the 17th, it would look at the 24th. And 5 days before the 24th is the 19th. So functions also let our queries be a lot more dynamic and flexible. In the same way the current user function runs for the person running the query, I don't have to worry about changing the date in this query every week to get tickets created for the past 5 days. So these functions also make our queries a lot more flexible. I use functions a lot for like regular reporting, or the open sprints is a great example because it will only pull work items in the current sprint, which changes all the time, every few weeks. Frank, thank you for the call out. There are caveats to some of these, and some of the functions may not function, in the way we expect, and that's where that documentation is important. So we'll jump into that again as soon as I'm done with the slides. Liz, thank you for sharing this. So Pradeep, these are all great areas, the official documentation. I'll go, Liz, do you have the changelog URL handy? I can go dig it up in Atlassian community. But that documentation is a good starting point. Here's another example of a function. The next door. I'm pausing because you can get additional functions with certain add-ons. So what I'm going to show you are just some generic functions that everyone gets, but every function is available if you can search in Jira. However, not every function works on every field, and not every function will exist in your instance because some functions are custom or created by other groups. Here's another example. This is the current user function. In this case, the system is going to go ask, or in this case, I'm asking the system, who is the current user? And Jira is going to say, oh, it's Rob. And then I go, thank you. So instead of typing in reporter equals Rob, I add current user and it fills that in for me. Again, if I give this to Pradeep, Pradeep will then see their tickets. So it's another way, and I use this one all the time. When I build my functions, I tend to use current user instead of a static, instead of a specific reporter. Rodney, thank you for that quick comment. And while I dig up that documentation, what's your favorite function? No, Justin, because it's looking for the start of the day. It's irrespective of the calendars. It looks at this. It looks at your, again, the cloud system clock and says, when did 5 days ago begin? There are specific functions for SLA manipulation, though. I don't know offhand if any of them work on the start of a calendar, though. These are just some of my favorites. Again, we all have our favorites that we like to use a lot, but again, they depend on use case. These SLA functions at the bottom are basically worthless and useless to someone who uses Jira software for writing code exclusively. Some are more universally usable. I'm trying to see where this created is greater than or equal to 5. Are you referring to the example I had here, 24, of start of day minus 5? That will work. If that's true, that'll work if you run it the same day and time. However, if you ran it in 3 days, created minus 5, that logically can be the same. Wow. Work items with remote links by global ID. Yikes. What 24 is calling out here is you'll hear me use the term logically the same, and that just means you're getting the same result with 2 different ways. So sometimes a function like start of day minus 5 can give the same result as created minus 5, and that's okay. Sometimes, though, functions do things we can't easily express in numbers, number of weeks or months. Or they do things like SLA being breached that there's no other way to determine easily in JQL. And I think, okay, that was our overview of functions. Please keep the questions coming. Love seeing all the back and forth. I do have a bit of a selfish ask, though. I am constantly looking for ways to improve these study sessions, the information I can share, what I can give to all of you to make it more useful. So if you have a moment, I'm just going to drop this link in the chat. But if you have any feedback on how these are going. Awesome. This is why I appreciate Rodney. He's got that deep technical knowledge. And this is where, for, how do I phrase this? For most people, most of the time, there probably isn't too much of a difference. However, for those of us who are deep into Jira or using it a lot, understanding this very different difference, this very small difference, can be very useful and helpful. And this is where, again, most folks won't have access to that knowledge, simply won't know. And that's where it's important to be able to use things like our documentation, like our other resources, like that Discord server, like our friends at work, like the community. And all I'm doing now is pulling up that JQL functions resource. And this is Atlassian's official documentation. I forget who asked, but this is the list, the next door. These are all the functions we all should have access to. Now, to Rodney's point, the default list is cloud. So if I look up in the top, this is what's available in the cloud version of Jira. However, I might be on data center. And the trick with data center is there are all these versions. So this is where I'm dependent on knowing what version of Jira I'm on. And if I don't know, I just need to go ask. So I need to figure out, am I on data center or cloud? So if you're on data center, depending on your version, Oh, that makes me sad. That was give me an example. So, really? Well, I will have to figure out where there's a list of data center JQL. Um, this should just give us the answer. But this resource I keep bookmarked. Sorry, let me back up. I use this very frequently to get information about it. Oh, Rodney, that's not entirely true. The functions, and we'll see this live in just a minute, the only functions that work with a field will be listed. So if you start typing, the autocomplete will only show you valid functions. To Rodney's point, though, there's no way to go to a work item in Jira and like mouse over a field or right click or hit a keyboard shortcut and see what works for it. This is something that over time we just become comfortable with, but it's also called out in our documentation. If you had saved a query with one of the iWord functions, has it automatically been changed to the work item function? I don't think so, Barb. They're still updating the terminology. You'll see in multiple spots. So just remember where that iWord shows up, you can replace in your head with work item. So this documentation is important, so we're going to take a moment to go over it. It's got a lot more great stuff on how JQL operates. But reading it on the right, I've got a list of all the functions that are included. And again, these are just the ones that come with Jira. Here's current user as an example. So it performs a search based on the time at which the current user session began. Wait, that's not the one I wanted. This is the one I wanted. Sorry. The currently logged in user. It'll have warnings, like instances where this doesn't work. And then it's got this box of stuff. This box of stuff is the important technical things. And this is where we'll see what fields it can be used in. This shows us the operators it supports, the ones that it does not support, and then it gives you examples. So please take time to look through this resource and understand how to read it. I'll pick another one, end of day, a search base at the end of the current day. It gives you the syntax, how to type it in. And this big scary block of text is just telling me it supports either a plus or a minus, so go forward some days or backwards, and then years, months, weeks, days, hours, and minutes. Whew. And it also gives me important things to know about that I just have to know if I use it. So this is where when we use JQL, they kind of expect us to be a bit more technically minded or savvy. So we still need to know what it is. Oh, Liz, could you drop those in Discord for me? I think it might be blocking your URLs. And if you want to get to these without having to go through the YouTube chat, yes, this is what we're expecting to see, Annie. Instead of that first one, and I think they changed it. Yep, here we go. Work item history, for example. So again, please use this resource. I use it all the time when I forget stuff. Now we're going to pop into our live demo, though, where we've got a cloud instance. If you've got specific things you want me to try to do, please drop it in chat. And again, if you want, let me know your feedback on doing an entire hour just on applied JQL, just coming in here and doing searches together and then breaking them down. I want to make sure you all get enough of the hands-on stuff. I'll just start with created because I know there's stuff in here. As I'm typing, my autocomplete will give me valid operators. That's great. And I want to say created is greater than. And if I do a space, what I'll see are all the functions that work with this particular field. Let me zoom in for you. So after my operator, I could type in a date or something. Instead, I'm just going to hit a space and I'll see the possible operators that I can use in here. And while I'm serving that up, there we go. It went away. There we go. So this particular field supports date-related stuff. So I can expect all of the date-related functions to be valid in here. And that's what I'm seeing. I've got one called current login. I've got now. And now is an interesting one that I want to go look up just so I don't assume. And there's two ways in my mind to learn functions. One is to just go try them. And I'll encourage you, jump into Jira and just start pushing buttons to see what happens. Let me zoom out for us. Now performs a search at the current time. Now, what this doesn't answer for me, and again, this is a very more technical in-depth, is this my time, universal standard time, server time? I think it's safe to assume it's always going to be my time, so Pacific Standard Time, 6:41 in the morning, whatever it is. I know that there was nothing created after now, because you can't have things created in the future. Well, this would be interesting to see what happens. Yes, nothing. Okay, perfect. Maybe I'll try... I like the start of day, so I'll try start of day, and let's try minus 21. So this is essentially saying go back 21 days and give me whatever was created after that. And I have some results. This could be a very, very similar search to start of week minus 3. There will be a difference, though. And again, you'll see me going back to my documentation just so I know what's happening. Start of week. Sunday is the first day of the week. But you can pick a different day. Uh-oh. So this is something else that we need to be aware of. Logically, if I say start of week or start of day minus 21 and start of week minus 3, I might think that's the same date. It is not, because the start of week 3 weeks ago is on a Sunday. So that gives me additional days. So if I run this, I can expect a difference. And I got, actually I had one pop in. Perfect. So this is where we have to just be aware of how these work. The number of times a due date was changed. 24, I'm unaware of any way to track that using JQL. JQL is strong at finding things based on values of a field. It doesn't, to my knowledge, track the number of changes. There are some exceptions. My reporter field has was and was not, or changed. But things like due date doesn't have that ability to provide me that history. Barb has a good tip that I'd actually never considered. Last login is good when you return from vacation. And I just typed in Barb instead of created. Wow. Created is greater than last login. Wait, less than. I did the wrong one. This is not a functions challenge. I used the wrong operator. There we go. I actually hadn't ever used that one, but that's nice. Justin, history is recorded on the work item. However, there's no way to get a list of every work item where the due date has changed more than twice that I'm aware of, for example. So that's how to add a function. That's how to quickly find what's valid for any given field. Again, there's no list of functions in Jira itself. I have to go to that documentation, or I have to start typing in fields to see what's possible. That said, I know off the top of my head that the date functions only work in date fields. The user functions, like current user, only works in user fields. So there's some groups of these things, and the documentation is very good at calling out. Here's one. Oop, I just saw it. Only works in Jira Service Management, for example. And that's where this documentation is so important. Only works for service management, etc. So SLAs are a big thing that I get to deal with because I work a lot with JSM, Jira Service Management. So we're going to talk a little bit about these particular groups of functions. And I'm trying to make sure I actually have work items. I almost said that word. Was it this one? It should be this one. Okay, good. Do I have SLAs on them though? Okay, here we go. So as I mentioned this at the start, have a ticket open or a work item so you can go see what fields there are. What you just saw me do was go find a work item because I need to know the name of the SLA. So when I'm doing SLA math or SLA functions, I reference the SLA, so time to first response in this case. And in the left here, I'm going to go back to my filters, which under filters, I've got search issues. I'm going to open that up. And I'm just going to paste in the name of my SLA. Now you'll notice I had to put this in quotes. And this is anytime there is a space in text, I need to use the quotes. I can also just click on the name and that'll work. I'll do an equals, and now I'll get a different list of things. So this is asking Jira, go find the time to first response where it is in a certain status. This is another thing that we just have to know when we're using functions in JQL. SLAs have a state. They are completed. They are paused. They are running. And so when I search for this, I have to know what running means. It means the clock is still ticking. It does not mean that the SLA was breached, that I exceeded a target. It does not mean that the SLA still has time left on the clock. It just means that it is not stopped. So this is where functions can also be confusing and where that documentation is helpful. You're going to trip over a function and go, this is great. This does exactly what I want. And then you're going to use it and you're going to be like, wait a minute, that doesn't do what I want, or it's missing things. And that's where I just come in here and I go, oh, okay. SLA is running. Now, I think one of the Justins had a question. Within calendar hours might be what you're looking for instead of created. Now, another thing to know about SLAs is they only tick when a calendar is active. So the team has defined 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. So I need a different function to check if it's running during a time the team is expected to work. Excuse me. Ooh. So this is a separate function that I need to use and maybe add to my query to make sure I'm only pulling things I intend to. Roddy's got a tip here. Due date is greater than the end of the month -2 and due date end of the month -1. What Rodney's doing here, and I'll show this in a moment, is a more complex query. So it's filtering on a few things. Yes, Barb, I'm always confused over what to call. What do I call this symbol? It's the key right next to the enter key on my keyboard. I've called it a double quotes, and then people put in 2 of those, and I've called it a single quote, and people only use the single one. So sometimes I call it a double single quote, but then people do 2 of the single quotes, and it just goes wrong. So it's whatever that double quote thing is called around text. So this is an example of the function within SLAs. And again, because the SLA field differs, I get a different list of things in here. Some very useful ones for me are breached. And this shows me any ticket, and there's going to be a lot of them in here, where the SLA wasn't met. So my team hasn't quite caught. Oh no. Excuse me. Kythra, if you're still with us, my friend, I would love your opinion on this one. I'll take you as more of an authority. Excuse me, given your expertise. So breached gives me any work item where the SLA is exceeded. So this one's very useful for service desk managers because it lets you know, hey, where did we go over? Now, I probably want to expand this. So when I think of functions, I don't only have one clause. So again, our statement is the whole thing. A clause is a complete part of the statement. So this can stand on its own. However, maybe I don't care about the work items that are still, that are done, that breached. I only want to see work items that are still running. So I'm going to use an and. And again, when I use the and keyword, it shrinks my results because more things have to be true to show up. So I'll say and status category does not equal done. I don't think I shared status category. This is a great cheat code. Instead of having to type in the name of every completed status, This just goes and finds them all for me. So now I have open work items that have an SLA that has been exceeded in time to first response. Ooh, thank you, 24. If anyone wants to send me coffee to keep me going, I'll happily accept. Or if you want to be a coffee sponsor, whatever coffee you want, I love the stuff. So this is where like functions are powerful. They give us just these work items that are breached. However, I probably need more. I need to think through what do I need this to do, because breached on its own may not be everything I need. Kythra, I appreciate that. Kythra's point too about the US centric is important. We've got folks in here from all over the world, which is amazing. So if there might be differences on things you see me do or talk about, please feel free to call me out on it. At the very least, I'd love to learn how different places operate. I also want to make sure, though, that what I share with you, like calling these things parentheses, makes sense and works for you. Maybe we just need a work items bot, Liz, that just sits in chat and corrects me. All right, zooming out. Rodney had a good trick using... this one. So I'm just going to copy this and see what it does. And this is something I encourage everyone to do. You know, I'd say steal ideas from this, but you can't steal them. I want you to use them. So Rodney's suggestion was take due date is greater than the end of the month 2 months ago. Let me zoom in here. And where the due date is less than the end of the month 1 month ago. So this is, if I were to read this in English, I would say, get me a list of every ticket where there's a due date greater than 2 months ago and less than 1 month ago. So just the tickets from last month, basically. This is a great thing I can give my team now, and I could even extend this. I can see I have different assignees. I can add another function. I might say and assignee equals current user. And then I save this filter and I give it to my team. And I tell them, hey team, on the first or second of every month, open this up, and you're only going to see your tickets that have that due date. I might take it one step further though. I can see I have a done ticket in here. Maybe I want to get that out as well. So I'm going to throw in another function, or another clause, I should say. And status category is not equal done. So now I have a pretty complex function that grabs tickets that were due last month, where the current person's the assignee, and they're incomplete. So right here, there's 4 clauses in this big, long statement and a bunch of keywords. But I can save this, give it to the team, and they can see exactly what they need. And Rodney's got an interesting point. You could use start of month, but end of month might be more intuitive for folks. And that's the nice thing about these functions. If you read them, they tend to just do exactly what they say. Find the end of the month. Find the current user. And that helps me when I think about what is this thing doing. Oh, George, I'm sorry, my friend. I hope everything's okay. I've gone on decaf for a while for some reasons in my life, and it's not bad, honestly. I do half and then none. Yes, 24. You can use sprints. So I'll use this as my last example. Again, we have a use case, and we have a field for sprint. And I have these options for sprints. Now, excuse me, this requires sprints to be set up, so I'm curious what's available in this demo box. But this is saying, go get me any ticket in a sprint that is open. Oh, good, we got a lot. So this is another very common search that I will use. I'll add to it. I typically do that assignee trick where I include the assignee. And I give this to my team. Now, this will show nothing for me because I wasn't assigned any of those tickets. So maybe I'll say there is no assignee. This could also be a useful one. Hey, team, we've got an open sprint and no one is assigned to these work items. I need your help. Woo. All right, folks. In our last couple minutes, I do have an entire course on Udemy on JQL. I wrote this course again because many people struggle with it and I wanted to help them out. It's available to you all at a discount. If you follow that QR code, I'll drop the coupon code down below as well. I will point out I have to update all of the screenshots and screen sharing. But that's a nice 2-hour overview, and it digs into specific types of functions and specific use cases for functions. Now, we've had folks ask about other functions. Are they all in here? Rodney's point right here about Script Runner, your organization may have different functions because you have different add-ons. So you can have apps from the marketplace that give you additional functions in Jira. So please be aware you may have more things than I showed you just because they don't exist in mine. So next steps, I need to ignore that top bullet point. Please go get hands-on, go play with JQL and see what happens. But also a number of people have pointed out, you can use things like ChatGPT to help you with JQL. I like to learn how to do it so in the moment I can just crank out the query. Oh, was I in the way of the QR code here? I'll shrink my head. Whee! Hopefully I'm small enough now. There we go. Appreciate that, Justin, keeping me honest. Please go get hands-on with JQL. It's the best way to learn kind of any skill. And I'm very tiny, so I'm gonna grow my head again. I'm gonna unshrink my head. Whee! Oh, that's kind of fun. And I'd also, again, want your feedback. I'd be happy to do a whole session where we just do different queries. So let me know what you think in that form, and I'll see if I can dig it up real quick and share it around again. But I know a lot of people struggle with finding things, and I'm looking for solutions to that. So would love your ideas on what other sessions we can do, how I can help you out here. Justin, it's not all that odd that the QR code worked. There's a lot of great technical wizardry in QR codes for like error handling, so I'm glad that worked. Rodney's got a great tip. You can always start with the basic search, and it will help you out. And while I'm still thinking about it, I need to shrink my head. Whee! If I click this rocker, basic to JQL, it'll swap between, but sometimes it'll break. So there are some things that I can't easily translate between these, but you can see here it shows me what the underlying JQL is. Also, if you're on Premium, you can click Ask AI. In natural language, and it will then figure out the JQL to support that. So these are just a few ways to help practice and help learn JQL. You're not stuck just guessing. That said, I need to zoom out. Wow, here we go. Scott, I'm glad you found some informative nuggets. Be on the lookout for more, though. I've got ideas for things like AQL, Asset Query Language, and more stuff on JQL. So I've got some ideas. Be on the lookout both on my channel and, of course, like the video and subscribe so you get those updates. But you have all these recordings available at all times. I have an entire playlist just of JQL-related stuff, which I'll drop in the chat. And please share this. I guarantee you there are folks at your organization that could benefit from any of this. But jump over to that playlist. It's got a lot of great stuff. And be on the lookout for more live content. Again, I'll probably do one on practical JQL or something where we have specific use cases. But I do want to thank you all. I really enjoyed talking about JQL, and I'm glad you all joined me. Again, be on the lookout for more. Have a great week wherever you are. Join us in that Discord server to get live back and forth and more of the community that I'm hoping to build. And I'll see you all soon. Wait, Justin, which Drax reference? I will leave the chat open for a bit, so please all don't disappear. And we're going to have our beautiful opening video again. So thank you again. Have a great Tuesday, and I'll see you soon.